Good morning. I want to welcome you all here today. I'm so happy that you are here and that I can share my experience with you. Today's workshop will be a half-day interactive workshop, so we're going to do some fun art today too. Today's workshop is addressing cultural diversity in teaching in the 21st century. Lesson planning and curriculum planning in all areas of learning in schools that do not support social justice. And how can we remedy this? Before we go further, I want you to think about that, but before we go further, we are going to quickly look at the agenda so that you know the purpose of today's workshop. I will explain the overview of cultural diversity in teaching. Then we'll have a short break, and then we'll do some a lesson that I usually teach to my students, but that older, or I will say adults, enjoy tremendously. And then we'll report back. We'll look at the products that you made. We'll discuss it, and then we'll have a closure at the end. Let's start. Okay, I want to first explain what is cultural diversity. It includes different ethnicities, people of color, different cultures, genders that has different gender associations. It includes sexual orientations and also underrepresented or minority groups. So it's a cultural, in the United States, we are so blessed because we have a cultural pluralistic society. And because of that, people bring so much to the United States that it gives us a power, but it's a power of possibility because we can let it grow to a beautiful nation. So I want to quickly read this quote to you. This has meant so much to me in my life. It's a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. in 1965. He says, quote, "In an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be unless I am what I ought to be." This is so true. And then he finished the quote with, "This is the interrelated structure of reality." We can all work together and give equal benefits and build that equity in this beautiful country, the United States. I am firstly going to talk about why do we want to include diverse cultures in lesson planning, curriculum planning, pedagogies, and social development in all schools in the United States. There must be a reason why we want to include it. The first thing is we want to build cultural capital. We want to help to go and build a relationship with families and with the students, so that we know the student very well. If the student has a specific need or comes late to school one morning or a few mornings, then perhaps that the student has a disability that needs attention early in the morning. So that helps. It helps to prohibit deficit thinking. The second reason is also we want to close the achievement gap or the opportunity gap. several students, and I experienced it in kindergarten, come to school without the knowledge that other students have, especially with minority groups and people of color. So we can help them to bridge that knowledge and to get that to obtain the knowledge, so that they can they start from the same I will say starting point, and we take them from where they are to where they should be. And then also we want to motivate students, and we can only motivate them tremendously well if we are going to have knowledge of their culture. The next part is communication, and I want to share this with you. Delbert said in 1995 is that diverse students bring linguistic codes and communicator styles, for example, symbols that are intimately connected to loved ones, community, and personal identity. We must cherish that. We must cherish it and see it as a learning opportunity for all of us. Remember what we said, it will make our nation stronger. And students that learn in their language that they speak the best, or that they know the best from home, that it was found that these students are when they start to learn a second language, then they do it much faster. And so it's very important to allow them to bring that language or to learn in that language of nature. Role models. Role models is also important because they tell us more about the culture and about diverse cultures. That's another reason why we want to include role models and learn from their culture. Social justice. Minority groups still exist today. Tories said that in 2017 said that there's a social construct that is really not working. It was designed by politicians and schools in the past years, and we must change that mindset, and we must build a new social construct that is built on finding out and making ourselves vulnerable to hear the truth and to change, so that we have a better future for everybody. Brian Rosinski said that mentions that we don't provide enough avenues where the students can participate in and succeed. So he says we must go back and think how we can create better pathways. For example, dancing. And then Dr. Chris Emden stated that we must use less powerful words like academic words in the classrooms, but rather find new ways for them to participate and different ways to participate, and in that way build up some equity. So I found it appropriate that it looks to me, I'm a very visual person, so the culturally sustaining teaching and learning is necessary in an ever-changing world. I see it that the culture, the indigenous people, people bring their social organization of elements and of nature, their principles and epistemologies, and they plant the roots deep into the ground. And if we all work together, we can grow as a nation together. It was said by Alfred is that traditional knowledge and survival is the core of our existence as nations, is embedded in their traditions and culture. Sustaining communities to sustain a community, we need energy and brain power, and we can only have it if we take what was done in the past and work with it and hand it to the future generation. and I found it fitting to look at the spiral. We can spiral up and build a very strong nation, but we need the knowledge from the history from all these people that make up us, our nation. So elders and knowledge thinkers from the cultures have the deep knowledge that is expressed through storytelling. And storytelling is so powerful. We can do it, and so the teacher must find ways how they can get the youth to take the things that was said in or the knowledge from the elders and pass it on to the future. And that brings, and that's why it is so necessary that we teach our students, or that we make sure that we bring that culture into the schools and build equity. Okay, so now Gloria Ladson-Billings is a philosopher that she did her PhD. She taught for 10 years, and then she found that it was very it was fascinating to her one day when she saw a hip hop group, and the hip hop group, and she did some research on that and found that they expressed their oppression through their dancing, and they love the rapping too because they tell stories. Like we said, telling stories helps us to know how it really existed in the past. And so she found that culturally relevant pedagogy is a necessity. And so after she did her research, she went and she looked at how students learn. That was one of the first point that was important to her. The second part of culturally relevant pedagogy is cultural competence, and then the third one is critical consciousness. She firstly wants a teacher who wants to teach effectively and teach a culturally relevant teaching. For that we need how students learn. And the first is we need, the teacher needs to know the pedagogy, she needs to know the specific content knowledge, she must teach the students how to reason, how to problem solve, and also model development. And that is very important. I always taught my students in the beginning of the year, we did procedures, and then we worked a lot on their self-esteem. So we looked in mirrors, how pretty they are, and I gave them the moral support every day during the year, and that is very important. She found also that the teacher must have knowledge of the nature or the fluid of the culture. So the teacher must know patterns, stances, activities, and also the ethics. Of the culture, and that you can do by building the relationship, having a Zoom conference with the parents, or sending a questionnaire home that they can fill out in their language. So, and then also to have the teacher must study socially. Do a little bit of study in social studies so that she knows the history, the geography, and the economy of that culture. And then the last part is critical consciousness. And that's the part, several years ago, I found that fine arts is a very good, it is essential because it's the way that students learn. It forms the basis for math and science, and also for other areas of learning, and it also helps them to express themselves. And through their pictures, one can learn a lot from students. So, so the critical consciousness is a very important factor, and I even wrote a book about it, Art Your Future, so that because I included all my ideas, and Gloria Latzenbrings had the same experience, that fine arts can help students to it's like a universal language that they can use to express themselves. And then there can be other unique ways that students communicate through, especially teenagers, and then also students' literacy, their language, especially their native tongue too. So that was just in a nutshell why that we must reinvent and work on a cultural relevant pedagogy. Now we come to the next part, and that is the fun part, where I will show you how we will start our lesson. This is a lesson that I designed for second grade, and I always included in the year, at the beginning of the year when I planned, I looked at all the cultures represented in the school, and then I would make sure that I have lessons planned during the year in my curriculum that includes a lesson on each culture. This lesson is from the Zulu tribe in South Africa, and what I like to present from them is when I start to talk about them, we can even stand up, and it's a second grade lesson, but we'll do some dancing on the drum music that they do their dances. So that is just I incorporate that, and the students like it when they experience that. So we will dance to the music, and I'll show them pictures of the Zulus, how they with their clothing. I show pictures of their clothing, and then we talk also about how they live. They are very self-sufficient. They live from nature, and so in the end we design a Zulu village. And I do have, you can see I have my lesson objective, my language objectives, and I include the supporting disciplines. I always plan my lesson according to the tics, but I bring in a lot of Zulu vocabulary, and it's always fun and exciting to them to say the Zulu words. And you can see that is what we're planning. That was done by a student that I taught. I'm very flexible, so today we're going to just do together. I first do, you will see on your tables you have rocks, bark, and we also have leaves. And so we will first go on a nature walk. This lesson is designed over 2 or 3 class periods, depending on how much time we have to work. And then we start first. So we talk about how they lived outside in nature. So we first start with the background, and usually I have the leaves, and they can tape it underneath. And let me just get a piece of tape. So they tape it underneath, and I just started mine so that you can see how it was done. So we'll tape it underneath, and they will and they'll do some rubbings. They usually want to do rubbings, but I tell them there are special times for rubbings. So we will design the background, a landscape, and it should, so the Zulus have their specific little huts, so then they do the rubbings so that they can see the texture of all the things that we have out. So I do a lot of, we work a lot with all the senses, and so that they can absorb as much as they can from the Zulu culture. And I sometimes do have students from Africa, so this is very exciting, but all my students love to do this. We can use where they lived, the Zulu language lived, of the Zulu people live, is they had sand, so we can just rub the rocks, and it just gives things a different texture. Then we will go further and we will start to paint. So after we finish the background, we will start to paint. And that's where my science comes in. We will first talk about they're very self-sufficient, so they had their own chickens, they made campfire at night. So, and then we will paint the tree. Now, so we will just start and mix our paint. You can, and this also helps him to see how brown is done by mixing the primary colors. And I always tell them that the Zulu tribe do not have stores, so they had to find ways. They hunted, and they would, and then they would use the hide for their clothing, and so it tells them a lot, and they learn a lot about the art too. So we will just start by painting the tree. And you see, I just mix, and they because they live in nature, they mix the primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. And sometimes they would use the paint from the blood from the animals to paint with too. So we will just start to paint the tree. You can see, and then they learn a lot through this. Okay, and so you can see, and then we do the leaves. The leaves is just done with doing the green leaves. And they usually enjoy the drawing the people tremendously, because the people, and then we will collage the clothes. You can see this girl who did this picture, that she took some fabric that had the print from animals on, and they usually enjoy it. The last thing that I want to show you before, and then I'm going to let you continue to do it. We just fold the little hut that they live in, so they learn a lot about this. And in this, with a hut, they learn about symmetry too. And then we will glue the hut, and we will cut the people and add the people. So I am going to let you explore and work with that. I just want to finish the workshop today. This was, in a nutshell, how I would do the lesson. We are going to look at your products, but I just want to say final thoughts today. Let us learn from the history of the cultures around the world, respecting their symbols, opinions, skills, and ideas. Let us encourage them to express themselves through visual art and literacy. We should strive for equity. And just remember, visual arts provide equitable opportunities for diverse populations and teaching people to treat others with respect. And you can see that's a picture from in Cape Town in South Africa, from the people playing in the street. Let us keep up letting students express themselves and build a diverse culture and strong nation. Have a wonderful day.